1,500 plus scientific documents, guiding countless researchers in refining their manuscripts for impactful publishing. Ms. Somia ma'am is the founder of Somis AWW, a startup dedicated to supporting researchers with medical writing, manuscript publishing, and grant writing. Her venture was incubated by NSRCEL at IIM Bangalore, underscoring her innovative approach to empowering the research community. Academically, she holds a PhD in plant biotechnology from Bharatiya University, during which she conducted part of her research at the University of Osnabrück, Germany, through the prestigious DAAD Sandwich Scholarship. She also completed her master's in biotechnology from Bharatiya University and her bachelor's in biotechnology from PSG College of Arts and Science. Additionally, she has cleared several national level qualifying exams, including CSIR, UGC NET, DBT JRF, TNSET, and GATE. Ms. Soumya ma'am also leads two signature 10-day online workshops every January and June, focusing on manuscript writing and publishing using AI tools. When not, uh, without wasting our time, I would request ma'am to start the session, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kavita, for the wonderful introduction. And thank you, Dr. Piyush, for having me here today. So let me start by sharing my screen. So the most important question of the day, am I audible and is my screen visible?
Yes, yes.
It's fine. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So let's start with a very simple question. How many of you here recognize the face that you see on your screens? You're supposed to, because this happens to be one of my favorite actors, Benedict Cumberbatch. Some of you do recognize him as Doctor Strange of the Marvel series. And maybe if you are more of movie buffs, you also recognize him as the best version of Sherlock Holmes there ever was. Benedict Cumberbatch also went on to do yet another amazing project called The Imitation Game. So this movie is set in the World War times, precisely World War II. This was a time when the Nazis had an upper hand. They were clearly winning the war, and the Allies had no idea as to how they can really bring down the Nazis there. And it is at this juncture that the stance of the German army was further strengthened because they had a great encryption machine called Enigma. Today, when you open your WhatsApp and add a new contact, the first message that pops up is that your messages are encrypted end to end. Today, encryption has become a technology that is affordable to the common man. But back during the World War times, encryption was a technology that was reserved only for military communications, and the Germans had the best encryption technology in the form of Enigma. It is at this background that an amazing English mathematician and computer nerd called Alan Turing walks into the war scene, and he goes on to break the code of Enigma. And this movie, The Imitation Game, is all about how Alan Turing and his team do this, and also a bit about the personal tragedy of his life. So why exactly are we talking about world wars and mathematicians when the goal for today is to be talking about a new age technology called artificial intelligence in research, writing, and publishing? It is simply to drive home the fact that Alan Turing here is not just a computer nerd, but he is also considered as one of the founding fathers of artificial intelligence, which means the terminology and technology of artificial intelligence has existed for 6 decades. Just that you and I, the so-called common man, we were not talking about artificial intelligence so extensively on every single social gathering, every single FDP, FIP that is being conducted by institutions across the globe. But all of that changed somewhere around 2 years ago, thanks to this phenomenon called ChatGPT. So OpenAI introduces ChatGPT in November 2022, and ever since we have not stopped talking about ChatGPT. And incidentally, today, in this week, pretty much ChatGPT has introduced a new addition to its existing platform called Operator, which is going to allow ChatGPT to interact with the internet and find answers in at real time in life. We'll have to really wait to see how that is going to change the landscape of AI. So why are we all so excited about ChatGPT? Because we still are. It's simply because unlike the other chatbots that we had known up until now, ChatGPT was versatile, it was intelligent, and it could pretty much answer any question as long as the answer was available somewhere on the internet, and it has been a part of its training model. And also because ChatGPT stood on the shoulders of giants like Google itself, it started out as a multilingual tool, which means not just the English speaking population, but the non English speaking population could also experience and appreciate this amazing tool and all of its other cousins in the form of Claude, Copilot, and a thousand other Gen AI tools that came out after ChatGPT. So, what was our lives like before ChatGPT? We had this amazing search engine called Google, a simple search engine called Google. I'm not talking about the AI supercharged Google that we have today. We had a very simple search engine where when you ask a question, it goes around the internet, finds thousands of resources for you, and then dumps all those resources on your screen. And the onus was on you to go search through those million resources to find the answers that you are looking for. When ChatGPT walked into the room, we all simply shifted our loyalties from Google to ChatGPT because ChatGPT cut short the entire process. You don't have to go through the resources, you don't have to be overwhelmed. You ask the question, ChatGPT takes it upon itself to search through these resources and give you ready made, very crisp answers in formats that you require. And this definitely added to the overwhelming love that we all felt and still feel for ChatGPT. Gen AI was a revolution indeed. It was a huge revolution in the internet era, considering that just within the first 1 year of ChatGPT being introduced, among the 50 top AI tools, we have visited these websites and tools over 24 billion times as a collective human race. That is how much we became dependent on these AI tools. And today we have almost forgotten what life felt like when we had just Google, because today you no longer have the conventional Google. Google is all AI supercharged. Your phones are supercharged. You can no longer take a selfie without the AI component of your camera interfering and telling you where you should be focusing on for your selfie groupie for a picture and so on. That is how pervasive AI has become into our lives. But even today, the results that you get out of these Gen AI tools are highly dependent on how well you can give instructions to these tools. And this set of instructions that you give to any of these AI tools to get results out of them is called prompts. And only when you engineer your prompts correctly do you get the right results. And gone are the days when we were talking about simple prompts. Prompts have to be extensive knowledge sharing components or extensive, very, very instructive components for you to get good results. And a simple prompt at its basic, even without consulting the thousands of different prompt frameworks that are available on the internet, should have at least these five components. It is important that you always set the context and explain clearly what you expect out of the tool. Say, for instance, I'm a biology student. So, say I'm a biology teacher, for instance, and I ask ChatGPT what is photosynthesis. Then my question is simple. ChatGPT is going to go into the internet, it is going to go into its training data and find me the definition of photosynthesis. It might also give me the formula of 6H2O, 6CO2, all the formula that we all studied as school kids. But what if I'm not asking ChatGPT this question as a layman, but I'm specifically asking this question to prepare my lesson plan or to prepare my classroom notes for my grade 6 students? Grade 6 students don't understand what is CO2, what is H2O. They have not yet read the chemical formula, which means this random answer that ChatGPT gave me is almost useless to me if it is not adapted in the right way. But the problem was not with ChatGPT. The problem was with the way that I asked the question. If I were to re engineer my prompt based on these guidelines and mention that I'm looking at this topic of photosynthesis as a grade 6 school teacher, maybe teaching kids in the CBSE curriculum, and I want ChatGPT to help me with creating the lesson plans, help me with the content for the classroom, the assignments, the extra homeworks, experiential learning experiences for my students, for instance, then the output I get of ChatGPT will be completely different. It will be relevant. I can take it, and with very minimal revisions, I would be able to implement it into my classrooms. Similarly, what if I'm a researcher on photosynthesis? Then again, I will have to re-engineer my prompt. Tell ChatGPT that I'm looking for the latest research on photosynthesis. I want information only from the past 2 years, from the past 5 years. I only want information from index journals. I could even restrict ChatGPT to pick information only from journals indexed in Q1, Q2, Q3 category, steering very clearly away from the Q4 category. This all can happen. You can make this very volatile tool like ChatGPT. When I say ChatGPT, I'm not just referring to ChatGPT, but to all the other Gen AI tools as well. You can make them do the job more accurately by engineering your prompts thoroughly. So your prompts are supposed to be these guiding flags that will lead the AI tool from point A to point B to accommodate all of your specific requirements to give the result that you expect out of these tools. And AI definitely has created a revolution in the academic research world as well, especially the later part of the last year saw news coming out on the lines where AI has become much more intelligent, and the intelligence of AI is almost equal to that of a researcher who has done a PhD. These models are yet to be tested intensively, but yes, AI is definitely catching up in academic spheres, and we just cannot lay back and let this revolution pass over us without us being a part of it. So what exactly are these AI tools at the back end? At the front end, they are mostly chatbots, but at the back end, there's something called large language models. One of the limitations with these LLM models is that these tools or these AI basically rely on existing data, rely on the training data to bring information. They cannot create something out of nothing. They are not creative in the true sense of the word. They can only regurgitate or reprocess existing content, existing information, and bring it back to you. They don't understand content. They are basically probability models which are very clever in guessing what the next set of words or next components could be in any given task. So in the context of research, this is a huge limitation because your ChatGPT cannot really find a novel research question for you if, without you doing a lot of mental gymnastics and coming out with prompts to make sure that these tools stay grounded, but then also hallucinate to give you something that really do not exist. So when you're thinking of research, when you're thinking of novelty, AI might not be your answer. You still have to invest a lot of human efforts in doing that. Let us assume that we are all sitting in an offline session in a classroom with your notepads and your pens, and I set you an activity. I say, okay, I give you 60 seconds and you're supposed to do the activity that I have displayed on the screen. Let us assume that I've given you 60 seconds and you have all come up with a beautiful picture of mountains, trees, sun, and a house. Now, we did not even do the activity, but if we had, I'm sure most of your output will look something similar to this. The house will essentially have a tapered roof. And when I say mountains, the mountains usually have two peaks. You usually have a rising sun or a sun that is about to set. Though reality is nowhere closer to this. If you are living somewhere in the heart of a city like I do, you don't even see houses that look like this anymore. I, for one, do not see such houses most of the times on my everyday commute. I do not live in a house that looks like this. But even today, if you ask me to teach my daughter to draw a house, I'm sure I'm going to start up with drawing a house that looks something on the screen. So, how is that? Though we know this is not an accurate reflection of reality, we continue drawing such very biased images, very uniform images that are so away from reality. This is something called learned bias. So we learn these biases from our elders, from our teachers, from existing information. And even after our world experiences changes, we don't really change these biases. Now imagine what happens when I take an AI tool and then I feed all of your drawings of these houses and mountains into the AI tool as the training data. And then I ask the AI tool to draw a house. What kind of a house do you think the AI tool will come up with? I'm pretty sure its house, the output will look similar to what you see here. This experiment was indeed done almost 1.5, 2 years ago with one of the popular AI tools called Midjourney, I believe, where the user just gave a handful of prompts, very simple prompts, and asked the tool to create composite images out of those prompts. And the tool gave these amazing images. When we looked at these images for the first time, we were all out, right? Even today, these images are pretty amazing considering how simple prompts can lead to such composite images. But after being wowed by the images, if you can take a pause, take a breath, and look at these images once again, you will easily spot the flaws with most of these images. If not, let me point it out for you. Let's assume you're all sitting somewhere in the US. Even then, do you think all prisoners will look like that? Or to rephrase my question, are most prisoners black in the US? How many of you would be treated by a nurse who looks like that? The more important question is, why should a nurse look a certain way and why should a cleaner look something completely different? Where did the AI learn these highly polarized, biased images for a nurse and a cleaner when the user did not specify that they wanted a specific type of a nurse or they wanted a specific cleaner from a particular ethnicity and so on? So the AI has learned all of these biases from existing images, all the advertisements, all the websites, all the flyers, every single image that we have created for so many of the promotions. So AI is not judgmental. It does not really have an understanding of ethics or bias, which means when you ask a research question to AI, it is going to reproduce the most dominant information, which means the dominant voices will get amplified, whereas the repressed voices or the marginalized voices will get marginalized further. In the research literature context, this means most of the answers you seek will come from open access literature and very little from subscription based literature, because if you don't have access to the subscription based papers, the AI also does not have access to them. And considering all the issues that we are having with open access publications, what kind of biased information are we getting out of several of the AI tools? So this is yet another limitation you should remember before using an AI tool. Today, AI is everywhere, right from research to every single process that you go through in your day, you can find an application for AI. But the problem is, it is a race against time when it comes to comparing how fast the technology is growing and how much we are lagging in coming up with the right frameworks, right regulations, right legalities in terms of legal aspects, ethical aspects, even environmental aspects that have to be considered before developing AI any further. So today it is like running a race with Usain Bolt. The technology is Usain Bolt. He's always way ahead of his competitors, and AI is running pretty fast, and we are just trying to play catch up in coming up with the right regulations and the right frameworks as to use AI ethically. And that is what we are here to discuss for most part of it as well. So before we venture into understanding the different kinds of AI tools that you can use for your scientific writing and publishing journeys, it is important to understand and acknowledge that this world of AI is pretty complex. It has so many layers to it, and AI is evolving every single day. And we humans do not understand all parts of this evolution. And this calls for a lot of caution alongside the super excitement that we have for AI. On that note, and to add to the beautiful introduction by Dr. Kavita, I am Dr. Sowmiya, and I enjoy doing three things in my life, at least at the moment. The first is that of being a parent to an almost 11-year-old and all the stray pets that she has brought along over the past decade. The second is that of being an editor with this 20 plus year old concern called Editage, which serves as a bridge between publishers and authors to smoothen out the publication journey. A third role that I donned pretty recently is that of an entrepreneur, where I have a startup called Sowmiya Rani, which focuses on empowering researchers, faculty, R&D professionals, medical healthcare professionals, and professionals all across the board, whoever focuses on research and trying to publish their work through different programs. like webinars, just like the one we are having today. We also have long form workshops that run for 5 days, 10 days, and so on. We just completed our 10-day workshop in January with a huge positive response from close to 60 participants we had. And we just now announced our 5-day workshop that will happen in April. I'll share more details towards the end of the program. We also do 2-day, 3-day workshops exclusively tailor made for different faculty groups across institutions, both inside India and also abroad. In addition to the training programs, faculty development programs, and other such programs, we also have a dedicated team of editors who handhold our clients from the initial draft to the final publication process for their manuscripts. We don't write manuscripts. We don't have any back channel tie-ups with journals, conferences, but rather we are on your side, standing with you to perfect your manuscript from that very rough edged initial draft by offering revisions, proofreading, by rewriting content where it is necessary, helping you format your manuscripts as required by the journal guidelines, helping you pick the right journals for a particular manuscript, and also supporting you to address the reviewer comments appropriately so that your peer review process gets a bit smoother. So this is what we do, and anything and everything I talk during these sessions, which have happened at more than 100 plus institutions in the past year, all comes from my experience of interacting with the clients during the editing process, but then also from talking to different researchers such as yourself during these sessions as well. So when we look at the life of a researcher, a faculty come researcher, for instance, a majority of your time is spent around finding literature, processing this information in the literature, presenting it in different forms. It could be in the form of classroom sessions, presentations, or in the form of manuscripts. What if I can give you AI tools that make this part of your life slightly easier and less time consuming so that you have much more time to tackle the rest of your professional requirements and also your personal life? I know this data is more than almost a decade old, but I'm sure this percentage still remains valid even today. One of the first places where AI can help you make your literature, make your scientific writing process more efficient is in finding your literature. And a quick switch you can make for finding mostly your primary and secondary sources of literature is to move your literature search from Google Scholar to Semantic Scholar. So how are they different? They pretty much look, function, and work similar, but the difference is that Google Scholar is a heavily keyword based search, which means Google Scholar does not really understand the interaction between multiple keywords. So if I give 4 different keywords to Google Scholar, Scholar tries to find resources with even a slight connection to one of the keywords that I provide. But when we look at semantic tools like Semantic Scholar, these tools look beyond independent keywords. They look at the interconnections between the keywords, as in how they are placed within a content, how often are they repeated, and so on. So when the search is powered by semantics, then the output is that instead of having 10,000s of results on your Google Scholar, you're going to end up having less than 1,000, hardly 500, 600 papers. But these papers that are more relevant, more custom made for your search, which means you save a lot of time in finding those top of the tunnel papers. A second set of tools that you can explore for finding literature or your literature mapping tools, one of the good examples is Slit Maps. So how exactly is Slit Maps different from Google Scholar and Semantic Scholar? So Google Scholar and Semantic Scholar, they are tools that follow a top-down approach, which means you start with a set of keywords and then these tools, they dump a huge collection of literature on you, and the onus is on you to apply filtering to bring down these 500 or 50,000 different literature into a collection of 100 papers that are really relevant for your work. But unlike the top-down tools, Litmaps and other literature mapping tools, they kind of follow a bottom-up approach, which means you start with a small collection of papers, even one paper of your choice, and at every single stage of building the literature, you have much more control as to what gets added, which means you don't spend time reading through thousands of papers that are in no way relevant to you. But sometimes, yes, tangential reading can help. But Litmaps is a great option or a great addendum to your existing literature search strategy to make a very, very focused building of your literature. So a third category of tool that you can use for your literature search comes under tools like Sourcely, for instance. So these are tools that can come in really handy at instances where you are still trying to find that needle in a haystack. You're reading all over the place, you're not still sure what exactly you're looking for, but then you keep coming across very interesting reads, and it could even be a blog post, it could be a formal article, and you want to start from this content and slowly build your literature, but you don't want to really sit and spend time on figuring out the right keywords, key strings, and so on. It is at such instances that Sourcely can come in handy, wherein you can just copy a paragraph. It could be as something as simple as 100 words. You can even run 1,000 word searches, for instance. You copy exactly what you're reading, throw it into Sourcely. Sourcely will figure out the keywords, key strings. It will look at the citations, references, any back sources there will be tracked, and you will end up having a good collection of proper scientific literature, which you can start exploring, or you can start building on your literature from the base collection. A tangential use for Sourcely is when you have completed writing your paper. It always so happens that the introduction and discussion sections will have some of these beautifully written argument sentences, but these sentences might lack citations because you forgot to add citations somewhere during your writing journey. It is at these orphan sentences Sourcely can come in handy. Once again, you can just copy paste these orphan sentences, throw it into Sourcely. Sourcely will give you a list of references that are suitable, aligned with the content in these particular sentences. You can go back, find the same paper that you referred to back when you were writing the sentence, or you can come up with a completely new set of references that feel much more relevant and latest references maybe. So when we talked about ChatGPT, when I opened the session with ChatGPT, I talked about the limitations of ChatGPT. So ChatGPT can go into hallucinations, which are not always good. The data can be a bit limited because it does not have access to the real-time data in most of the cases. ChatGPT by default does not add citations, does not tell you where it finds its information from. The sources are not always mentioned. Of course, you can prompt engineer your way to make ChatGPT write like a scientific writer, but that's a lot of additional work, especially considering that you have great tools like Consensus, where you don't have to do any kind of prompt engineering. You can simply ask a straightforward question, and Consensus will give you a nice summarized answer. What more is that this answer is backed by a minimum of 10 references in most of the cases where references are available. Every single sentence has a reference, which means you can quickly go back to these references. You just have to hover your mouse over these numbers at the end of each sentence, and it will you have a pop-up with the title of the paper. Click on the title of the paper. You'll be taken to the journal page where the article is published, which means you have a very quick way to validate the information on every single sentence. Now I get asked two questions usually after this slide. The first question is this summary plagiarized? Did Consensus copy the summary from existing papers? No, it did not. By design, Consensus was not built to copy content, but rather to summarize existing content, which means this is, in most of the cases, a good paraphrased content from multiple papers. But considering that there are only so many different ways in which paraphrasing can happen, a bit of overlap with existing or published literature sometimes becomes unavoidable. Okay, so if this is not plagiarized content, then can I copy paste this content as it is, or can I use this summary as it is on my manuscript? My personal answer is yes, go ahead and use it. But the catch is you can only use it on your zero drafts or on your first drafts, not on your final drafts, because though this content is not plagiarized, this is still AI generated content, and there are very strict guidelines against the use of AI generated content, both at the institutional level and at the journal level. So I would not use AI generated content on my final manuscript, but I would definitely use AI generated content as a guideline, as a crutch when I'm writing my first initial drafts instead of having to stare at a blank page. A second tool where you can ask your research questions is Elicit. Similar to consensus, Elicit will give you a nice summary with citations with references. But in addition, Elicit also helps you quickly create these anatomies of hundreds of papers where you can quickly extract a specific data from across 100 papers in a nice tabulated format, which can also be exported as an Excel file. So what kind of data can I extract? Say, for instance, I am at the beginning of my research journey, and one of the key information that I want is to know the research gaps, the limitations, and future directions that have been mentioned across hundreds of papers. Having all this information extracted into a neat tabular column quickly tells me what research has happened in my field, where exactly is the lacuna, which is a good research gap that I can pick, frame my research questions, and start working on. Or say, once I'm done with my papers, I might want to go up and look at the different journals where these top papers in my field have been published. You can just add a column. Elicit is good with picking up not just data within the manuscript, it can also help you quickly analyze metadata as well. Reading scientific papers is not easy. It is boring on the worst days and it gets very complicated even on the best days. This coming from an editor who has to read scientific manuscripts day in and day out to help our clients hone the manuscripts and get them to a readable and sometimes an exceptional stage as well. So why exactly is this part of reading and understanding manuscripts difficult? I believe it is for two reasons. One is because we come from a country where English is not our first language, which means reading and comprehending this complex or formal, boring language in these scientific manuscripts can get a bit daunting. The second reason is that manuscripts are not written for beginners, they are written for experts, which means if you don't have a certain amount of ground knowledge in the field, you cannot really appreciate what goes into these manuscripts. This is where tools like SciSpace Copilot can come in handy. You can upload your manuscripts on Copilot, and then anytime you don't understand the background, the context, or some of the definitions in certain sections of a paper, you can just highlight the section. And SciSpace has an option called Explain Text, where you can ask for explanations for this text. SciSpace will give you all the definitions, all the background information, and the insights that you would need to understand this particular section of a paper. What more is that this works not just for textual content, it will also work for your equations, it will also work for your tables, for instance. The way we consume information has definitely evolved. There was a time when we were following the updates from our friends on Orkut, we jumped to Facebook, and now it's mostly Instagram. We no longer read blog posts, we listen to podcasts. We don't follow our friends on posts even. We mostly follow people on the real culture that exists today. But then it is a natural way that human communication has evolved. But through all of these changes, if one thing has not changed, it is the way we read papers. We still consume papers as written material. The other forms, though there are video journals, the other forms are not really catching up, not in a very widespread manner. Why is that? Because for us to consume scientific literature in other forms as podcasts or as listening content, it is important that the literature is published in these contents. But with the advent of AI, that limitation has been removed. So even when a paper is published in a conventional way, you can still use tools like Speechify and listening.io to convert your written papers into listening content, which you can listen to when you are driving to your institutions, when you're doing something else, when you're cooking your favorite meal, taking care of your gardening, or just hitting the gym, for instance. So AI has made it possible to convert written content seamlessly in less than a minute into content that you can listen. And SciSpace recently introduced a feature called podcast, where any paper can be converted into a podcast material where one person asks questions, the other person answers the questions, and so on. A very interesting feature that you should definitely check out. So next comes a stage where you have to summarize information from individual papers and multiple papers. There again, AI like Scholarly make it very easy for you to summarize multiple papers into very small or very brief content called flashcard summaries in case of scholarship, for instance. And then you can pretty much download these flashcard summaries in any file format that you want. You can use it on your class notes, you can use it on your papers, you can use it on your next presentation slides, and so on. So, not just the way that we consume information, the way that we present information, the way that we write and bring out the information in our heads has also evolved thanks to tools like AudioPen. So, you no longer have to sit down and take down those notes manually, or you don't have to sit down and type the thoughts in your head onto a system. Instead, you can just have apps like AudioPen on one of your devices or on all of your devices if you so want, and anytime you have a thought, you can just dictate these thoughts into your device, and tools like AudioPen will convert the content into a nicely written, put together text. So, how is this novel? Because we have had such transcription tools all along the way. What AI has made possible is that with transcribing tools, one of the limitations is that they just capture your words, your pauses, your additional words just as they are. They don't do the cleanup. They don't act like your personal assistants. Whereas audio pen like tools can act like your personal assistants, do a bit of cleanup, do a bit of proofreading, do a bit of organization, and bring back the content to you in a much more organized way. Good manuscripts do not just rely on good text, and increasingly there is a higher emphasis on good graphical content as well, especially when you want to publish with some of these high-end journals. They don't just look at your text, they also encourage you. In fact, they make it mandatory that you also come up with good graphics. And there are n number of AI tools where you can just give a simple prompt and get very, very creative, colorful, out of the world images. But there are two limitations. One is that these tools, these Gen AI category of tools, don't normally work really well when you want to create scientific figures. And the second thing is the journals across publishers have prohibited or have banned the use of AI to create images that go within the manuscript, but also images that go within the graphical abstracts, which means you cannot exactly use AI to create your images for your in-text figures, not even for your graphical abstracts. So this set of tools are of not really much use when it comes to the publishing part of your life, but they are still great additions for your classroom lessons and for your presentations and so on. But it does not mean you have to discount AI based tools completely, because there are tools like eDrawMax, for instance, which have a combination of conventional templates and a bit of AI in them as well. And these tools can help you create images using AI, but you have much more control over the output. And because of that reason, tools create or images created by tools like eDrawMax can be used in your manuscript. So what kind of images can be created using eDrawMax? You can create different kinds of flow diagrams, flow charts, electrical circuit diagrams, for instance. Or if you're from the business background, you can create your lean canvas. Or if you're trying to write your grant proposals, then your Gantt charts, PERT charts can be created in a very, very lucrative, colorful way using eDrawMax. And even when you're from far off fields like architecture, eDrawMax has something to offer for every single field. So definitely a tool that you should check out. Then comes the question of statistical analysis. So are there tools that can help me with doing my statistical analysis? Yes, you have tools like Tableau that are touted to be good alternatives or addendums to your conventional tools like SPSS, or your SAS tools, your Python based tools, your R based tools, for instance. And recently, yet another prompt based AI called Julius AI is definitely catching up in popularity when it comes to analyzing data using very simple prompts. Definitely tools to check out. So this is Julius AI, where you can upload your data, you can upload your Excel sheets in 4 or 5 different formats, file formats can be uploaded, and then you can instruct Julius to process your data in very specific ways using simple prompts. If some of you are from qualitative research fields, and if you're working on focus group data, non textual data that has to be processed for insights, then Insight 7 is one of the tools that might come in handy. Or say you're someone who relies on survey responses for your work, you rely heavily on your Google forms for your work, then Kindo is an AI tool that can help you process your Google forms. Then comes this question of managing references. So when it comes to managing references, one of the easiest ways and the economical ways to manage references is to learn a good reference manager, especially free managers like Mendeley or Zotero, for instance. But if you did miss having a reference manager and you're stuck with having hundreds of references that have to be quickly changed from one style to the other, then you have AI tools like Tricks, for instance, where you can just upload your entire reference collection and pick a style of your choice, and less than a minute your 100 references are completely converted into the new style of your choice. Looks like magic sometimes, but a tool that you can try out. So one other common question that I missed answering up until now is, are these tools free? No, they are not completely free. Most of the good AI tools, they are something called freemium tools, which means they do offer some of the features for free, or you can check out these tools for a limited amount of time or a limited amount of data for free. But if you want to get the full extent of the use of these tools, then you will have to go for the pro version of these tools. Yeah? And that applies equally to tricks as well. Then comes the problem of tackling language and word count limitations on your manuscripts. So here again, Grammarly and Quillbot have been doing a good job. They still do, but these tools were not exclusively built for academia, which means they don't understand all academic conventions when it comes to languages, structure, grammar, and so on. This is where having an academically built tool like Paperpal or Trinka can come in really handy for managing your language in manuscripts across the different types. So Paperpal is from Editish. This is the same company that I work for as an editor. I'm not associated with the Paperpal team, but then I do work with them on and off to check out their new features to for their social media promotions and so on. And my recommendation for PaperPal does not come because of my association with the tool or the team, but rather because of the extensive developments that the tool has undergone in the past 1 year, especially in the past few months. So this is one tool that is again a very common question. So it is very difficult for a researcher to have tens of different tools. If there is one tool that can solve several of the potential issues, which tool would be a good suggestion? I would say Paperpal because it has solutions from ideation to doing a mock peer review. Trinka again is a great tool from yet another language editing company called Enago. And anytime you subject your manuscript into an AI tool, be very, very careful. Read their data privacy policies. Never submit your manuscript into a tool that you have not vetted, you have not read reviews, because losing data at a final stage could be really disastrous for you as a researcher. So always be very careful when you're using these AI tools. Look beyond the tools, look for the people or the company behind these tools, and only use tools that come from really reliable sources. If some of you are from engineering backgrounds, for instance, then you might want a tool that will work on a latex application. Then the tool you're looking for is Rightful because it integrates beautifully into Overleaf. Even on the free version of Overleaf, you can check out Rightful for a minimum of features. Paperpal also recently introduced a plugin for Overleaf, but that works only on the pro version, and Rightful also works on MS Word documents. So no matter where you are, MS Word or Overleaf, Paperpal and Rightful can come in handy. And this week, Paperpal has also introduced a plugin for Google Docs, which means even when you're doing your scientific writing on Google Docs, Paperpal will still stay with you. So one of the toughest things that you do during your PhD is to actually sit down and write those annual reports and then write your final thesis. I, for one, definitely wish that there was a magic wand that I could just swish, swish around and then my thesis would get written, because the paper that you're trying to write, the literature review that you're trying to do in a very simple prompt, and then take up your popcorn, sit back and watch, and with very minimal interventions from you, feedback from you, Jenny can synthesize your entire literature review from outline with the necessary subheadings, content, citations, and references. Looks too good to be true, but it does a good job, I would say. But the problem is, this content is still AI generated content, and a lot of human effort and input has to go into this content before parts of it or the idea, the framework generated by such AI tools can become a part of your manuscript. But still, this is a great place to brainstorm ideas. Maybe copy pasting content that comes out of Jenny into your manuscripts is not a great idea, but then throwing your ideas into Jenny, making Jenny write the same content in 1,000 different ways before figuring out which perspective is something that is really interesting for you, that resonates with you, and which you want to carry forward is definitely a great application for Jenny. But if you're thinking on the lines of synthesizing huge chunks of content using Jenny, then maybe not a good idea. Once you're done writing your manuscripts, then comes a stage where you have to check for all the different sections. A good manuscript is not just abstract to conclusion. There are n number of things that have to be checked on the title page. And then there are a handful of declarations, references, citations, the cross links between references and citations that have to be checked before submission to the journal. Here again, PaperPal has a solution in the form of manuscript checks when you're on the PaperPal app or on the MS Word plugin, where you can upload your draft manuscript, and the manuscript check will check your manuscript for close to 30 plus different aspects, right from the inclusion of content in the title page up until the relevance of your references and citations. Manuscript checks through all of these different criteria. It gives you a report that looks like what you see on the screen, that tells you where your manuscript is standing good and which sections, which aspects really need more inputs from you. And based on this report, you get to make changes to your manuscript before you actually submit it to the journal, giving you a much smoother initial submission process. And no matter how carefully you check your initial submission, when your manuscript goes through the much feared peer review process, and if you're unfortunate enough to land on peer reviewer two's desk, then they are going to rip your manuscript apart. You getting very, very critical, very personal comments for a manuscript is like a rite of passage in academia. We all have had that bad experience in our paper reviews, and it's kind of unavoidable. But what if I tell you that I can help you hire peer reviewer two in advance, even before you submit your manuscript to the journal? You finish your draft manuscript, you come to me, I help you hire peer reviewer two, and the reviewer gets through your manuscript, gives you a long 4 to 5 page thorough mock peer review report. And now you can revise your manuscript based on the peer review report, make changes that are possible. If necessary, bring in additional data, bring in additional experiments, and polish your paper thoroughly before you actually go for the initial journal submission. Now your paper is way, way better. The editor is happy because the paper is already good. The actual peer reviewers are also happy because most of what they normally critic has already been taken care of. This will help you shorten the entire process from submission to publication, because you have invested a lot of effort even before the submission has happened. Okay, this all sounds great, but where exactly can we go and hire the peer reviewer to? You can hire reviewers in the form of this AI tool called Paper Wizard, where you upload your final manuscript and you pay per paper basis. And this tool gives you a very critical peer review report that you can use to restructure, rephrase, and redo your manuscript before you actually go for the journal submission. And if you ask me how reliable this tool is, I would suggest just go do a Google search for Paper Wizard, see the academic institutions that are behind this tool, That should give you an idea as to how reliable this tool can be. One of the Indian institutions that are on the team for building this tool is IIT Bombay. That's the only Indian institution that I have seen. Apart from that, you have several of the Ivy League schools being represented on the development team for this AI tool. Making those midnight PowerPoint presentations is a mandate in academia. You definitely cannot escape that. But as good as MS PowerPoint was, it has gotten a bit boring. We have seen all the transitions, all the animations. So, what is new? What is the next? I'm sure several of you have already migrated making your presentations into Canva and into Prezi, for instance, which gives you all these nice interactive templates. But if you want to truly go the AI way, then you can start with Tectopus, Gamma, Pop AI like tools, where all you're expected to do is describe your presentation in a very, very short prompt, say 10 to 15 words, and then these tools create your entire presentation deck from scratch with images, with content, with proper structuring, and in less than a minute you have an entire deck that you can just take to start presenting. And among some of these tools, you can also upload your document, convert it into a presentation. You can upload multiple documents, ask the tool to summarize the content, and then make a presentation out of it. And most of the tools also give you the content in advance. So once they have generated the content, they help you give your feedback, or they give you a step where you can intervene, make changes to the content, and then they go on to the presentation. You can make changes onto the images that have been added into the slides. So you do have control over the final content that goes into your presentations. You can download them in different formats and start presenting. Now, no matter how knowledgeable you are as a person, how great your results are as a researcher, at the end of the day, it all boils down to good communication. How well can you communicate your thoughts to a classroom full of students, or to a room full of experts who are there to vet your grant proposal, or to vet your scientific discovery at a conference, and so on. Here again, AI can come in handy to hone your communication skills, where tools like Poised, they mostly sit on video calls and they watch you communicate, watch you talk, and then they give you a feedback, a very anonymous feedback telling you where you should make improvements. Are you too fast? Are you too slow? Are you overusing a particular word, for instance? How is your body language? Some tools can even do that. And this feedback will help you become better presenters, better communicators. And this is one of the tools that you can also introduce to your students, especially those final years who will sit for their placement interviews, for instance, to help them tackle those interviews in a much better way. Now that we have quickly ran through n number of AI tools that can help you in the scientific writing and publishing process, the next logical question is it ethical for me to use any or all of these AI tools in my next scientific writing project? The answer is yes and no. Yes, if you're trying to use these tools as your assistants. No, if you're trying to use these tools as replacements to yourself along any process or any step of the process from the initial draft to the final output. So, what do publishers have to say about the use of AI? Are there very clear guidelines about the use of AI? So it so happened that when ChatGPT was introduced for the first time, some researchers thought it was a great idea to use ChatGPT to generate large contents within their manuscript and then add ChatGPT as one of the co-authors. Because that is what we normally do. When someone contributes to our paper, we add them as a co-author. When an AI contributes to your paper, add an AI as a co-author. This happened with one of the Nature portfolio journals, I believe. It did not really sit well with the editorial team, and they quickly came up with guidelines which clearly stated that AI should not be used to include content that kind of qualifies them to become co-authors, and never can you add an AI as a co-author in any of your papers for two major reasons. One, they don't understand ethics, and even more important is that AI cannot be held responsible for the content it generates. So across publishers, you are expected to disclose AI use anytime you use AI for something as basic as say when you're using AI for proofreading or revising your manuscripts or structuring your manuscripts or tackling the references and citations, in such cases, you don't have to declare the use of AI because tools have already been used for these purposes even before the advent of AI. But anytime you use an AI tool for something more than this, then you're expected to disclose the name of the tool, the purpose why you use the tool, and also assure the editors and reviewers and your readers as well that after use of the tool, the content that came out of the AI tool was vetted by a human author, and that you human authors take complete responsibility for the entire paper, no matter what sections or what percentage of the content had an AI influence on it. So let us talk about this new policing system called AI content detectors. When we were already struggling to tackle plagiarism detectors, because plagiarism detectors, they are not perfect and they have been around for several decades. Now imagine AI content detectors, which are just toddlers on the block. They just started out now, and outright the verdict is that they are not accurate. They have a lot of fallacies and inaccuracies in the way they are designed, but also in the basic philosophy by which they can work. So how exactly do these AI content detectors figure out what was written by a human and what was written by an AI? This is a pretty difficult task because writing is writing at the end of the day, and there are very few arbitrary red flags like the use of some uncommon words like nuance, for instance, delve, for instance, or say the complexity of sentences when all the sentences are of very similar complexity, when all the paragraphs start with a introduction and end with a conclusion, and such very arbitrary criteria. So AI content detectors, they only depend on this arbitrary criteria, which means they are not accurate. But if a journal or a conference does use an AI content detector, you are at a loss. So the only way you can tackle this is be proactive and pass your manuscripts through not just a plagiarism detector, but through an AI content detector. And today, Turnitin has both within its institutional packages, which means anytime you run your manuscript for a plag check, also run it for an AI content check. And if in an unfortunate event that your human written content sometimes shows up as AI generated content, you might have to either take it up with the editors or you will have to rephrase, restructure certain sections of the paper to make sure that the AI content is not huge. So, what is acceptable? Even with plagiarism, we really do not know what percent of plagiarism is accepted. We presume that 10% is the acceptable limit across the board, but none of the journal guidelines explicitly tell you that 10% plagiarism is okay. Similarly, even with AI content, there are so many numbers that get thrown around. So it's like 10% is okay, 13% is okay, 20% is okay. But none of the journals or publishers explicitly tell you that this percentage of AI content is okay. A thumb rule, I would say, is to at least keep it less than 10 to 15%. But this is still again arbitrary. And also, when you're trying to use these content detectors as a teacher, as a faculty on your student assignments, be very careful because they are not perfect. Because what happens when you encounter a student like Shashi Tharoor, for instance, who normally has a flair for the English language? Tharoor never writes with normal words. Any essay of Shashi Tharoor, if you pass it through an AI, I believe it should show up as AI written content because the content is pretty novel. The word usage is also pretty novel when it comes to his writing. So, what if you have a student who has this flair for the English language, and that's why their essays look pretty different? So, when it comes to AI content detection, I would say always use your human judgment in conjunction with these AI content detection tools to not go wrong when you're trying to judge your student work is the takeaway there. So I did a small experiment with one of these content detectors called CopyLeaks. So I generated a small paragraph using Jenny AI and I put it into this detector. The detector tells me 100% of the content is AI. I agree because it is AI generated content. But anytime we have such policing mechanisms like content detectors, we'll always have a group of people who want to challenge the status quo and who want to live the thug life in the academic world. And the thugs of the AI world are called humanizers. So humanizers are basically AI tools that take an AI written content and restructure it, rewrite it in such a way that an AI content detector cannot find out that this content was originally written by an AI and also revised by yet another AI. Very confusing times that we actually live in. So I wanted to give a try with such a tool also. So I picked a humanizer called Stealth Writer. What did I do? I went back to the AI generated content from Jenny and then I put it into Stealth Writer. And Stealth Writer, being the humanizer tool, it rewrites the content in multiple ways. I pick one of the rewritten content and then I put it into copy leaks once again to see how much of this AI written and AI revised content will show up as AI content on my content detector. Surprisingly, CopyLeaks now thinks this entire paragraph was written by a human. I can assure you, I did not add a full stop or a space to this content. This content is 100% written by an AI and revised by an AI, but the content detector is not able to detect the presence of AI generated content within this text. This only goes to prove that the content detectors can be cheated, can be circumvented, but the goal of this part of the presentation is not to invite you to use humanizers to cheat on content detectors, but rather to show you how volatile this is all. But though these humanizer generated content will not catch up as AI content in some of the cases, not all of the cases, it is still not a wise idea to use humanizers because humanizers kind of mangle up your content. They make it unnecessarily complex. A detective might not be able to catch that something is wrong with this paragraph, but a human editor, a seasoned researcher and writer will quickly tell you something is wrong with this content on a single look. So use this for fun, not for your final experiments. So there was a time when fire belonged only to the gods, or that's what the Greek mythology says. So humans did not have fire back then. And there was this young god called Prometheus who was very fond of humans. So he looks down on the humans from heavens or cloud or wherever he stayed, and he sees that these poor humans are suffering. They are eaten by animals, they are hunted down by animals, they cannot move in the night, they are super cold, they don't have something to warm them up. And out of pity, Prometheus brings fire down from the heavens to earth to give it to the humans. I'm not sure how true this story was, and it is said that Prometheus was punished for life before because he did that. But when fire was discovered for the first time, be it from Prometheus or by rubbing through rocks, not all humans would have been happy because some humans would have seen the potential of fire, how it could keep us warm, how it could help ward off animals, how it could help you cook your food, for instance. But I'm sure majority of the humans could only see fire for its destructive potential, how it could burn down entire forests in a few minutes in a blink of an eye. Today, we have a new fire amongst us, and that fire is called artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence has innumerable limitations to it, but our paranoia should not stop us from exploring the good sides of AI. And that is the thought that I would like to leave you all with today, because the problem here is not AI. The problem is how we are attempting to use AI in our everyday lives, but also in the research field. Use AI correctly, explore the right AI, and keep your ethical compass at the right place, and AI can definitely augment our existing processes, making us much more efficient researchers and writers, I would say. So if you like today's session, there's a very high probability that you'll also like our upcoming experiential 5-day online workshop that will happen between April 8 and April 12. So it will run for 5 days. Later in the evenings on Indian time, and the recordings will also be shared immediately after the program, and it will be accessible for 3 months after the program. We also have a provision for some of the busy professionals where you can register only for the recording access at a discounted price. So if you like more details on this, you can always write to me on WhatsApp. And one other place where you can stay connected with me beyond the session is on LinkedIn. So you will find me on LinkedIn at least 3 to 4 days in a week, talking about research writing and publishing, talking about how you can leverage AI for improving your teaching pedagogies, for instance. So this is a nice place to stay connected. This QR code will take you to my LinkedIn page. I'll also share the link on the chat box so that you can have it for uh, connecting at a later point as well. I'm not good with calls, but I'm great with WhatsApp. So if you have any questions beyond the session also, you can anytime just drop me a WhatsApp message, and I normally get back to all my messages before I hit bed. So 12 to 18 hours tops, I'll definitely get back to you. If you're looking for manuscript editing services or for workshops, webinars for your own institutions, you can always drop us a mail and we will get back to you. And this is a much more important QR code, which will take you to a feedback form where I would like to personally hear about your experience about the session, and also about where else do you think AI can make your research writing process much more efficient. And as a thank you note, when you fill the form, I'll make sure that you will get a PDF list of several AI tools, both discussed in the session and also beyond, so that you can have a ready reference of a list of AI tools classified into different categories of research writing and publishing. And that will be really helpful for you, I believe. But that can happen only when you submit the feedback form. I'll also share the feedback form link on the chat box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 2 minutes to share the LinkedIn link and the feedback form link before I can take up a few questions from you. Yeah. So I'm
Yes,
not
yes.
sure how it works. So can you unmute and ask questions, or should you be only
Okay,
sharing it in the chat box?
the participant can raise your hand, and we or ma'am can unmute them.
Yeah.
So that
Okay.
is the way. Okay.
Or you can also drop your questions into the chat box. I'll take it up from there. That can also
Okay,
happen.
fine.
So I'm just quickly going through the. Um, okay, let me just scroll up and take a few questions from the chat box. Okay. Exact AI tools which can be used for research aspect. Okay, I think this was a comment much earlier, Dr. Sudarshana. I hope I answered your question there. Yeah, Dr. Suresh Kumar, I'm always very clear on mentioning that there is no promise that, okay, come to us, we'll get your paper published. That does not happen. We are on your side. We'll cry with you when you get your rejection, and we are very happy to hit you with the cheers when the acceptance happens. That's all we can do. We have no control over the journal process whatsoever. Yeah. And
Good evening, madam. Good evening, organizers. This is Dr.
yeah, good
Suresh
evening,
Kumar.
sir.
Madam, there are these three different terminologies you have introduced. Maybe it is very new to me. That is learning bias, and the other two I am not able to recall. Okay. Now, in learning bias is the more common. It is more of the year-long process or decade, maybe it goes to more than 100 or 200 days. In such a situation, how AI could be attributed to be a supporter for, because it has its own limitations. No, it has its own limitations. For example, a person who is not having internet facilities, who had started research, means he will be thinking more than today's. So, is it more worth to keep AI tools more than 20 percentage in a research, or what may be the level we have to include the AI part in the ongoing research? Could you
Okay.
please explain, madam?
Yeah. Okay. So I believe this question was from Dr. Suresh Kumar. Am I right?
Yes, madam. Yes, madam. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Oh, okay. Because I didn't know where the question is coming from. So the answer is very layered to this question, because the right way to answer this is, do I really need AI to do my research today? The answer is still no. you can still do your research, you can still write your papers in the conventional way without the use of a single AI tool. You would still be perfectly fine with doing your work in a very conventional way, provided you have the time and the energy to do that. What these AI tools basically offer us is some time saving processes or some options where you can save your time. Say, for instance, literature review in a very conventional sense would take months because you have to sift through tens of thousands of literature. But when you have tools like litmaps, building your first 100 papers can happen in the very short span of 1 hour, for instance. But is it accurate enough? So does it mean that I can do away with all my conventional processes because I have litmaps? Should I just ignore Google Scholar? Here I would like to look at it not as a mutually exclusive set of tools, but I would like to promote, or I would like to suggest the use of AI tools as an addendum to your existing processes. Yes, go into Google Scholar, but then also use litmaps to quickly build on your literature. Once you have built your literature with litmaps, go back to Google Scholar to do a cross check and see that you have not missed out on any of the literature. So this is how I look at AI tools. So I cannot give you a number saying that, okay, 20% of the work can be outsourced to AI tools. There is no specific number. It all depends on how and where you want to use AI tools. As long as you are doing it within the limitations set by the journal guidelines, I think you can go ahead and even outsource 50% of work to the AI tools without compromising on your research acumen. That can still happen.
Madam, sincere thanks for an elaborative explanation. Actually, there was a gap to me as a conventional researcher who started research before the introduction of AI, or how far or how fast you gave a clear direction. Thanks a lot for the patient reply. Once again, hey, thank you, and also the organizations for the connecting you, because so many times I have seen your AI workshop, but
Okay.
today's I wanted to join one of the session, but somehow it was missing. But that gap has been, that vacancy has been filled up by the organizers and yourself. Thanks a lot, madam. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Yeah. So Soumya asks, is there an
Ma'am,
AI tool for, yeah, Dr. Bhuvneshwari, I'm just coming to you. Just give me a moment. So is there a tool for in-depth interview and qualitative data? So I think I kind of answered that question when I introduced tools like Insight 7 and Kindo, I believe. And yeah, Insight 7 and Kindo are great places for you to start when you're working with qualitative data, doctor. Okay. So let me just pick a few more questions, Dr. Bhuvneshwari, and I'll be back to you. Yeah. Okay. So how to know the citation of a manuscript and provide reference? Okay. So I'm not, okay, Dr. Bhuvneshwari, that was your question. So what exactly does that question mean?
actually, ma'am, some AI tools will write some introduction, something like that, but it will not give citations and references. But if you use that Google Scholar, then only we could have that citations. You told that instead of Google Scholar, there are some other thing to know the citations of these. Uh, I mean words. So from where these words are taken, and that
Yeah. So my suggestion here is don't use tools that do not give you the citations. As in, don't ask your research questions to ChatGPT, Claude, or Microsoft Copilot, because these tools, they were not built for research data. Instead, ask your questions to consensus, elicit, size space. You have answered this. You have what else? There are so many other things like you have paper digest, for instance. So ask these academic tools because these tools, they give you the answer, they also give you the citations and references. You can go back and always verify if the information is correct and from the right source before you add it into your manuscript. So the strategy is to actually move your search to a tool that by default gives you citations and references.
ma'am, what kind of tool can be used for?
You can try consensus, you can try elicit, size space, And anytime you have content which does not have citation, you can use source B.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just looking into, yeah, Dr. Sagar, Canva can be used for preparing graphical abstracts. But I don't know which field you are from. If you are from health sciences, biological sciences, BioRender is a great choice. You can also use Mind the Graph. And then there is a very specific graphical abstract tool called Tidbit. That is also something you can use. AI-based diagrams, I think eDraw Max is the tool you're looking for, Dr. Mehul. Dr. Virendra, to get a humanized text. So yes, the best way to get a humanized text is to get a human editor to edit your text. That's the perfect way for you to actually get a humanized text. But if you're talking about humanizer AI, you should try out this tool called Stealth Writer. So Stealth Writer has a humanizing option. Yeah. So I've already answered the question for graphical abstract. Okay, when it comes to the tips for reducing plagiarism and AI detection, I would say I'm not giving you shortcuts because shortcuts don't always work. It is with your strategy. So to avoid plagiarism, never copy paste content from anywhere. Always read content, summarize it, and you write it on your own. So your writing canvas should only have content written by you. This also applies for AI suggestions. So when you're using paraphrasing tools, it could even be PaperPal, it could be Trinka, it could be any of the paraphrasing tools, even when the original content was written by you, and then you put your content into a paraphrasing tool, the output could still be detected as AI generated content, which means you can use a paraphrasing tool, but don't just copy paste the suggestion as it is. Look at the paraphrased text, look at how the paraphrasing has happened, and using that as a template or as a guideline, you make the changes on the original text by yourself. That is the right way to use AI tools to avoid both plagiarism as well as AI detection. Yes, ChatGPT provides wrong references. That's why we are not using ChatGPT. We are going to stick to our academic tools like Consensus, Elicit, and SciSpace. Yeah. So I think reducing plagiarism and AI detection is strategy and not exactly using tools. Using tools can only take you up to a certain extent. Beyond that, I don't think using tools are a great idea. So share few names of human AI text. Okay, so if you're talking about humanizer, Stealth Writer is a good humanizer. So it's just Stealth and Writer. So someone has asked me for my mail ID and contact details. So I'm going to share that also on the chat box so that you, and this is my WhatsApp number as well. Yeah, so now you have my contact on the chat box as well. That will help you quickly reach me beyond the session. So I see a few raised hands. Dr. Sudarshana, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Good evening, ma'am.
Hi.
Actually, yeah, I just wanted to know that as you were already discussed that we can generate image through AI, but when we are putting it in a manuscript, or it will be detected as AI generated. So, are there any software tools so that we can create AI generated image on our own?
No. So that is where you use tools like eDraw Max. You use tools like Mind the Graph. So let me just type that out. So this is for yeah. So this is for both your questions. I have another question on chat box. So that is also answered with these tools. So these tools are where you can actually build your own graphical abstracts. You can build your own images with proper text and so on. So I have listed out the names on the chat box. So these are some tools. So eDrawmax and MindyGraph, they have AI components, but they're not completely AI tools. As in, it's not like you can just give a prompt and then get output, use the output as it is. But rather, these are tools where you can take a drawing canvas and then you can add components one after the other and
Okay.
actually build your graphical abstract or build your comprehensive image, and that image is valid enough for you to use on your manuscripts. But
Okay,
if you're
okay,
using Midjourney, if you're using Canva AI, then no, not an option. So even
okay,
on
okay.
Canva, without using the AI component, you can still build your graphical
Yeah,
abstract.
yeah, that's true, ma'am. We use Canva to build a graphical abstract or a image for our manuscript. But generally, we found that there are some components which are already predefined AI generated. So we are unable to put that. So that's why I am asking.
Okay. Yeah, that is
Thanks,
sometimes
ma'am. Thanks
complicated
for the
because they
valuable
kind of,
information.
depend on what your journal allows. So I'm also going to share a few discount codes for some of the tools. I'll just see if I can quickly get them. Just give me a moment. And for checking out plagiarism, PaperPal has an option where you can check plagiarism. Yeah, so I have also shared a message with discount codes for some of the tools that we discussed. So see if that can benefit you. Okay, for checking plagiarism, Turnitin is your best bet. Turnitin and Authenticate Dr. Vinod. But when you subscribe to tools like PaperPal, PaperPal has a provision where you can check your manuscript for plagiarism, but you can only use it for 10,000 words in a month. So when you're using it as an individual, getting a PaperPal subscription will help you also do a proper Turnitin plagiarism check, because Turnitin and PaperPal has tied up with Turnitin right now. But even otherwise, PaperPal will always have some plagiarism check incorporated, is what I understand. Okay, so Dr. Jigisha, for event flyers, I think you should check out Visme, Visme, Dr. Jigisha. That's a tool which is pretty similar to Canva. You can use it for your event flyers. Yeah. Okay. So yes, you have the next session at 7:30. So I'll just take one or two questions and then we'll wind up. Reduce AI reduction by using. Um, okay, the simple answer is you can try out Humanizer AI, but the more honest answer is make sure you're not letting any AI tools write your manuscripts. Use AI only as a template, then you will not end up with AI text which has to be rewritten or changed at a later point in time, right? Yeah, so Canva alternative is called Visme, Visme. That's a tool pretty similar to Canva. Yeah. So I guess Dr. Piyush is eager to wind up the session so that they can go ahead with the next one. I truly
Sorry,
understand that.
this message was from me. I'm sorry to
Okay,
interrupt. Would love to
no
hear you
problem,
for
no
another
problem.
2 hours, ma'am, but we are bound by the time, so we need
Yes,
to
I
conclude.
understand.
Um, it's like I don't have words to conclude. It's a flawless telepresentation.
Thank
Your
you.
every gesture and word was extremely informative. Like, ma'am, you have left no stone unturned to make our participants aware of really, really useful tools for research and academic writing. I wanted to make a quick note for concluding remarks, but I was having no time to move attention from you and make a note. But still, I have tried for our participants just for a recap. I know that you'll be. You just told that when we'll fill the feedback, we'll get the list. But still, I have made a note like
Okay.
size space, scholarly, Wondershare, useful for making diagram, Julius Julius AI for statistical analysis, Kindo to analyze survey response, Tricks for reference management, PaperPal for language writing, Trinka for grammar, uh, Jenny.ai for content writing, Paper.wizard for peer review, and finally bonus for effective communication. And you also covered ethical consideration, which is of utmost importance, and which every our expert has concluded that you have to always keep your ethics above AI. So I think if we go hand in hand with keeping ethics in one hand and using AI with another hand, it will be better for us, for the world, for the universe, ultimately. Thank you, ma'am. It
Right.
was wonderful to have your presence, and we, our organizers and our participants, are lucky enough to attend your session. We look forward for upcoming all the sessions, upcoming
Yeah.
all the FDPs organized by us. So thank you for coming, and thank
Thank
you
you.
all the
You all have a
participants
great evening
Thank
with the
you.
next session
participating.
also. Yeah.
Thank
See
you.
you all on some other session, some other time. Yeah. Bye.
Sure,
Thank
sure.
you. Thank you.
We have a next session lineup in a 10 minutes. So be online. And thank you for active participants. So all can take a quick break. Online will be there. We'll start our session at 8:05, right? No, sorry. We start with the 7:35. 7:35. Okay, just 10-minute break. Welcome, Ketan sir. Your PPT is looking fine. We'll start after the 5 minutes.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. Good evening.
Hello.
Yes, good evening. Your video
Yes.
is okay, and your sharing is okay.
Okay, my sound is also fine.
Yes, fine, fine, very well. How are you?
Okay,
Fine?
I'm good. Good to see you all. I can see Bhagirath sir, Deepa madam, Ravindra sir, all online.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
So shall we start?
We start in 2 minutes. We already to set the 7:5, so 7:35. Sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Okay. You can close your camera if you can.
Okay, sure.
Sir, you can start your presentation first slide. So you can share your presentation. Okay, fine, fine. It's fine.